Hello and welcome to Crux Investor. Got up earlier today with Waldo Perez. He's the CEO of Neo Lithium. They've just raised $30 million. We ask him where from, what's he going to do with it, and just how close they are to that finish line of getting into production. If you want our thoughts and opinions on the conversation, his plans, and the company itself, you can find that at cruxinvestor.com/club. We can also find detailed company reports and analysis, which I think you'll find interesting and useful. There's summaries of other interviews that we've done just to save you some time. There's training courses to help you with your own diligence process. There's expert commentary from people from around the world on a variety of commodities and companies. Truly fascinating. Gives you that little head start. And there's a thriving community of investors sharing their thoughts and ideas with each other in a nice, friendly, safe environment, free from trolling and abuse. So if that sounds nice to you, go join them at cruxinvestor.com/club. And we'd love your feedback too. So do give us a like, it'd be appreciated. Leave your comments below. We'll get back to absolutely everyone. And if you want to see precisely what we talked about today, take a look in the description below. Waldo, how are you, sir?
Hey, how are you?
We are great. We're great. Thanks for joining us for Lithium Week. We're going to talk to the great and the good. And we think you're one of the good. So, and the greats. And the greats. Looking forward to it.
Thank you very much.
How have you been? It's been nearly a month.
Yes. Well, we have been very busy, We recently raised $30 million. That's not counting the bit that CATL will contribute to maintain their 8% position. So this, at the end, is going to be somewhere around whatever, 32, 33, $34 million, something in that range. I don't have the final exact number, but it's a very important part of the process, because it's opening the gate to the next stage, to what we will do with this money in the next stage.
That's why I'm interested, okay? Because, we've been talking to a lot of lithium hydroxide companies. We've been looking at some of these spodumene concentrate companies, and we're interested in the brine process. We want people to understand, well, we need all of it, but I want to understand your process for getting there. So first of all, congratulations on raising that money. Just on the CATL, in terms of retaining their position there. So what's the net amount that they will be putting in just to hold their stake?
Oh my goodness, I'm not the CFO, but it's something 2.3, if I recall correctly. A little bit over $2 million. Sorry that I don't have the final.
Okay. But the point is that they're still at the table. They still want to be at the table with you.
Oh, yes. Right. And they are contributing on top. They are not inside. So it's not, 30 million minus what they put. It's on top. It's important too, because it's more money.
Okay, fine. Okay. We've talked a few times in the past, and you've been kind enough to run through the business plan and strategy and the team and the assets before. So people should look at it. We'll put a link below so people can reference this, okay? I want to today talk about what's the plan from now. You're close. You're close to the finishing line. You've got money, but there's a process you got to go through. Can you explain that to me?
Yes. It is very important because lithium brine mines are different from your regular mine. If you have a copper, a lead, or a spodumene mine, what you really are doing is a hole in the ground, taking that ore and processing in the plant. The trip of the hole in the ground to the processing plant is half an hour, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. In our projects, having the mine, which is actually the ponds that are evaporating the brine in the salar, once you have that built, that will take a year to evaporate. So you really have the construction time, the filling time, and then the evaporation time. So it makes no sense to do the plant simultaneously because it would basically be idle for more than a year. So it has absolutely no sense. You really have to do this first. This portion, thanks to the high grade of our project, relatively speaking, is a much smaller amount of money than other mines. In our case, with $40 million, we can actually complete all the pre-evaporation ponds, which are the biggest and are the ones that take most of the time of evaporation. So the reason of this raise and the purpose of this raise is to start constructing as soon as practically possible in order to speed up the evaporation process. Now, we are not fully financed. We don't have $320 million, but we have around $60 million from the 320. So we do have a significant amount of money, a portion of which will be allocated to building the ponds. Relatively speaking, is easy technology, is earth movement, and of course, is extracting brine and filling them and putting them to evaporate. So this is basically the objective. In order to be in production in the year 2023, I need to start building the ponds by the end of this year.
Right. And people should be looking behind you. Those are the ponds. These are the sorts of things.
But these are the pilot ones. Yeah. These are the small. They're going to be 600 times bigger.
Wow. Yeah. 600 times. But I say wow, but as you say, it's just earth moving, lining, evaporation. Nice, simple technique, but you got to start now. So of the 30 million, I mean, can you break that down for me? Because you're not going to spend 30 million moving earth. What else are you looking at doing?
Yes. Well, basically, remember that the liner has a cost. So yes, it's moving the earth. Let me explain. It's moving the earth, improving the road that is already very good, but still need the improvement. Okay, improving the road, moving the earth, buying the liner, which is actually the single object that is more expensive here. It's the only thing that you really need to buy because the rest is moving. And of course, a little bit of local infrastructure. What I mean by local infrastructure is all the houses or living territory for the people building, because we already have a full camp for our own people. Okay, so we already have all the vehicles and so on that we use, but the contractors will have their own camp. So it's really, that is what the money is for.
Okay. So again, I think it's just important to get into a little bit of the detail here. So you have done as much of the testing in terms of the brine, in terms of impurities, the construction there, and what it is that you think you're going to end up with. You're comfortable with that? No more technical work required. Is that right?
Well, yes. Shall I say, however, when you talk with engineers, there is always something else to do. However, let me be clear. We have enough information to do the ponds, to do the wells, and to fill them and have the brine ready. There is always ongoing work. As a matter of fact, remember, please, that we are completing the final feasibility study with a collaboration with CATL. Okay. But the pond part is actually totally done. There is nothing else to add. Relatively speaking, it's very low-tech technology too. So relatively speaking, it's the simplest portion of it. Okay, but we want to use our evaporation time that will happen after we fill to complete the financing. Okay, and of course, we will be completing our definitive feasibility study by the end of the third quarter of this year, the beginning of the fourth quarter, right between those two, quarters, we are going to be completing the feasibility study.
Okay, so with CATL putting their money in this 2.5 million, this number, whatever the number is, something like this, yes. Are they being very prescriptive about where their money is spent? Are they happy for you to allocate it all, or are they more concerned about the technical components?
Yeah, no. They have no problems with our plan that we, of course, outlined to them. They also believe that it's a good idea to speed up, to move ahead. So we are in total agreement on the use of proceedings, actually. And by the way, and just as a reference, we are not too innovative here. You can see other companies that I include Lithium Americas, who also finance and build the ponds first before the rest. And Galaxy in Salar del Hombre Muerto or Sal de Vida, did the same thing. I'm trying to say this is normal course of business. I do explain it because for somebody who is used to other type of mining, it looks weird, like why are you building the mine when you don't have a processing plant? Because the mine takes not only the time to build, which is long, but the evaporation time.
It's a different model, but it's a well-established model. I understood for sure. Okay, now you've raised 30 million plus whatever CATL give you.
Yes,
that is I guess a stamp of approval from the market going, this company, we believe, will actually get over the line. So where did the money come from? Who were you talking to?
Yes, yes, yes. So of course, it's a very strong letter of support, shall I say, of the risking of the project. And I should say that there were a lot of interest in the market for this participating in this financing, and there are several very large houses I cannot disclose yet, but there are very important, investment banks and large houses from Europe and United States and Canada that are participating. So we had a very strong support to do this. And very importantly, it de-risked the project. Okay, it's not the same to negotiate an offtake agreement or a loan for a plant that is already in construction, that is already fully permitted, that you can see the brine evaporating, and you are saying, look, I have the process, I have, just to say, 30% built. I'm missing 70, but 30 is done. So what you are going to finance or your offtake agreement is safer. It's not the same to have nothing and to say, well, I have nothing, and I need this money. It's not the same. So significantly the risk.
Yeah. So if I look at when we first started talking to you, you're around sort of 40, 50 cents. Okay. You're a long way from that. You're whatever, like 330, 340 today, 420, 450 million market cap. So, but a lot of that has come in the last 3-4 months. The market is moving. People are buying the EV thematic, not just you, not just lithium, but tin, nickel, copper, graphite, all of the companies to do with the EV thematic are seeing movements out there. So the market has helped a lot, but you're also quite near the finish line we talked about earlier. So that's, and with your experience with Lithium Americas, or do you think, what do you think is going to happen next in terms of what are people's expectations of you?
Good question. And let me tell you something. The market is moving. Lithium prices are going up on a weekly basis, So what's going to happen is that there's going to be first of all, reaccommodation of the business. So when you have a mine or a project, you know that if you are, shall I say, positive financially, meaning the project is economically financeable. Our project has an amazing, for example, internal rate of return of 50%. Other competitors have 20, 25, 22, but also depends on the price of lithium. So what I think is going to happen is that there is going to be a set of winners. The companies that can finance, that the project is technically feasible, and that the project generates revenues enough to actually make the investor comfortable that can be financed. And there is going to be losers. I always say to the shareholders, of course you can bet on a trend, but be careful, read the company reports, be technical, think, talk with people like you, that can give you advice, because never, ever, everybody is a winner. That simply doesn't happen. Okay. So don't bet on the fullest investor, bet on the smartest investor.
I think that's an interesting point you make, because getting funded, I think is a big endorsement, but sometimes companies get funded and the technical fundamentals just aren't there. Now, obviously you got CATL in there as a big supporter. You've been there with Lithium Americas before. You're comfortable about the journey that you've got to complete. But yeah, there are companies out there that perhaps are dependent on the thematic and the market and the price of lithium to succeed, but technically may not at some point.
Exactly. Of course. And then it's easy to see who are they related with, what are their partners, So it's not difficult to evaluate, but it's very, very important to understand. Yes, the electromobility is a reality. The world is going to be driving electric vehicles, have no question. Now, we can argue about 5 years, 3 years, 10 years, but that is no question. And as such, our business, and I'm not talking about our company, just the business of electromobility, and as you just say, all the elements, cathodes, anodes, lithium, but also graphite and other elements are going to be basically the elements of the future that will transform the way we drive and we move. And other elements are going to be discarded in the same way that the iron shoe horses are not a great business anymore, but it was a fantastic business in 1900.
Tell my wife this. I still get the bills from the shoe horses.
From the horseshoe.
Yeah.
However, I'm sure that the company doesn't sell that many, like, as they used to 120 years ago.
This is true. It's true. We have a guy. So where are you inserting yourself? So the product that you're going to make and CATL want you to make, where does that insert itself in the market? Just so I understand, because there's lots of there's lots of product needed, and they all have slightly different applications, and some of them unique, some of them be a bit more generic. But where do you see yourself and your market being?
Well, we are going to be a producer of battery-grade lithium carbonate. It's going to be a niche product for vehicles. It's going to be a very pure product. That's what we are working with CATL. That is where I think is going to be the market in the future. Of course, I do not discard producing other products out of our project. Now, let's remember that our planned production of 20,000 tons a year of lithium carbonate is a very humble target for the size of the project. We could easily double production. Now, we are not doubling production today simply because we want to be in business in 2023. We have strong beliefs that prices are going to be maximum in 2023. So we want to be one of the first ones to be there in the door producing, and then we can have expansion plans. But it's not the same interest rate that you will get from a bank if you are a producing company than if you are a first comer, somebody who's coming there. That's why it makes sense from the financing point of view to start relatively small. When we go bigger, absolutely hydroxide, lithium metal, and other elements are definitively in our radar, So this is something that we want to definitively use our chemical expertise to develop.
Okay, so if we look at people like Albemarle, SQM, etc., they're being a little bit slow to ramp up themselves. They're a little bit unsure of timing, because timing is everything, right? Because as you say, that supply-demand delta will drive prices, or hopefully continue to drive prices in the lithium space. So when do you think those guys will reinsert themselves in the supply chain? Fully. I know they are, but...
No, they are always slower than they usually say something, and they are very slow to deliver. But I have no questions that both Albemarle and SQM will ramp up and will increase their productions. Of course, I don't have the crystal ball, or I'm not inside their companies to predict anything. I count, and I think that the society and the industry need them to increase and ramp up. Otherwise, the electrification of mobilization will not happen. So the world needs them and needs them to be efficient. And I'm sure that eventually they will be there. They had many delays. It's always more difficult to improve and continue growing out of the same mineral deposit than developing a new one. When you develop a new one, you plan and you do everything to the stages and the size that you need. The other mines were already designed and they were permitted to certain size, and now they need to get back and get all the permits. One of the things that is a big problem, because both projects consume, relatively speaking, water and in a place that is very dry, and they already consumed. So all these things are what holding back. It's not that they are bad engineers or anything like that. It's the permitting that many times take delays for them.
No, we're seeing a few deals happening as well. I'm looking at SQM and West Farmers, Australia. Yes. You mentioned some companies that perhaps, previously, technically perhaps are not as capable as they need to be. They haven't got strategic partners. Does what you've done in terms of one, raising the capital, and two, continuing to have CATL as a partner, does that start to give you permission to perhaps to start thinking about consolidation, M&A, those sorts of things? Or have you got to
I
get
think
this
that
over the line first?
consolidation will happen.
Right.
Oh, you're right. Consolidation will happen. Again, this is a natural process, nothing crazy. This always happens when there is an asset that is in demand, like lithium, and there are companies that can be producers. So I think that you will see a lot of M&A in the next year or two.
Yes, and so I'm also interested in where you're positioning yourself, because I think we're looking at Albemarle forecasting hydroxide to rise from 30% of the market to 60% by 2025. I mean, is that a number that you subscribe to? You think that's realistic?
Well, I'm not Albemarle, but I definitively think that there's going to be more consumption from lithium hydroxide, particularly from Europe. So yes, I don't subscribe to a particular number, but the market will grow significantly. Again, think about this. We today, the world produce around 300,000 tons of lithium carbonate equivalent, meaning hydroxide and carbonate. Okay, all of that is 300,000. We need to go soon, in 4 or 5 years, to 1.2 million. So you need to triple, quadruple world production. And this is for both hydroxide and carbonate. It is a real challenge from the technical point of view to do that in such a short time and obtain environmental permits, the capital to do it, and not making any engineering mistake that don't get you to the final line. So definitely it will increase. Carbonate and hydroxide will increase significantly.
Right. Okay. And if I look at prices today, obviously, we've been looking at spodumene this morning, going from 300 to 450. Some people up to 500. Again, hydroxide. The numbers are dramatically increasing over the past 3-4 months, dramatically, but still not at a level for a lot of people to be incentivized to get back into, either get back into full production or be able to raise the capital to become a producer. You're a brine producer. It's famously known as a low-cost producer. So again, is the timing works for you now?
Yes.
You hope?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes, absolutely. We are on the right timing and on the right track. And effectively, we are very low cost. And we also have a challenge. Our difficulty is timing. Because if you have a spodumene mine, the price went up, you got Joe, crank the mill, and you are in production. For us, crank the mill means building the ponds, evaporating. I have 2 years to crank the mill. So that's why the money we just raised, and that's why we are starting to build the ponds as soon as practically possible, okay? I estimate it's going to be December this year.
Okay, so December this year starts your, 2-year process? Or 1-year process?
Yes.
Which one?
No, 2 years. Well, for the pond, for production, we pretend to produce into 2023. It's 2 years.
Okay, fantastic. What's your take on what's going on in the market? Is it sustainable, or is it just another episode like we had in 2015? People getting a bit excited.
Yes. Well, the markets always work on boom and bust. Okay, the markets always work with optimism, which sometimes is over optimism, and then with pessimism that always is over pessimism. That middle point is the reality. However, we haven't gotten yet to the top of the optimism. We have a long run to go before we go to the other side. So,
but you don't think because of the EV thematic? I mean, I know there are lots of uses out there, but the EV thematic driving this lithium-ion battery, do you think that is going to change the nature of these peaks and troughs? Is it going to be longer and more sustaining, or is it going to follow the pattern that it always has?
Oh no, on the contrary, that is going to exacerbate the peak. So we are going to have an exacerbated peak in the next 2-3 years. Our estimation is 2023 will have the highest cost of lithium. So the prices are going to keep rising for 2 more years, for sure. We don't see any way to supply the market in the next 2 years. And after 2023, there is going to be still difficulties, and it will depend on how successful the expansions were, other competitors like us were, So you need a lot of production in the next 3 years. We need to quadruple world production.
Okay.
Let's try to do that.
Let's try to do that. So, and just finally, what are the things that you still need to do in terms of de-risking this project? I know you've got the money in, which helps, but what else is maybe not in your control?
No, the next stages for us is very clear. Final construction environmental permit, definitive feasibility study finished or completed with CATL, and financing not of the pond, but of the plant, which means further $260 million of financing approximately.
Okay. And you've seen what's happened with Millennial Lithium and a similar setup to you. They've got finance that give you some level of comfort that there's interest in the market.
Yes, there is significant interest in the market, which is important for, junior companies like us need tailwind. We need. Now, what we do with the tailwind is what makes the difference.
Indeed. Waldo, brilliant to catch up with you. I love it. I'm going to be following you closely this year. I say close to that finish line. Stay in touch. Let us know how you get on, please.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you for your support, and stay tuned.